Yeah, morning Trainiacs. That was just a nice little cruisy Saturday morning. I think 82K kind of ride, just kept nice and breezy. Really no calories. Only thing that's in here are exogenous ketones and amino acids. That's all I took throughout the entire ride. Nothing but that. 3 hours. Just liquid. Barely any calories. So over the past few months on the Triathlon Taren podcast, which just happens to be the highest rated triathlon podcast in the world on Apple Podcasts, we have been interviewing a lot of sports scientists, and we've got into a lot of supplementation. What are the best supplements for endurance athletes? So today we're going to rattle off some of those awesome supplements for strength, for stamina, for endurance, for fat loss, for fat oxidation, just for looking good too. And while we're doing that, also rattle off, because we've talked about this with a lot of these experts, what are some of the supplements that are overhyped that you don't need to spend your money on? Let's do it. Alright, Trainiacs, let's talk about the best supplements that triathletes will use. So I'm going to preface this by saying that you might see me trying, researching, talking about a lot of supplements. Well, in a lot of cases, that's just because this is my job. It's not because it's what I believe everyone should be taking. So what I'm going to outline are some of the more common supplements that everyone is hearing about. I'm going to put them into one of three buckets. One being supplements that, yes, just about everyone should at least think about taking. Number two, supplements that could be beneficial in the right circumstance. Number three, supplements that are overhyped. So let's start off with the supplements that I think a lot of people should be taking. The first one is vitamin D. We heard Lionel Sanders talking about how he was deficient in vitamin D despite being outside. A couple years ago, I was deficient in vitamin D despite being outside. What we're finding is that because the food supply is starting to become less and less natural, and the soil is getting more and more depleted as we just kind of become more populated all around the world, there's less and less vitamin D that is able to get into our system. So a lot of people end up being deficient in vitamin D regardless of how much sun they get. Commonly, the fix for this is just superdose with vitamin D, but you aren't really going to be able to absorb that vitamin D if you don't pair it with E and K. So a stack of vitamin D, E, and K will help a lot of athletes. And why do we care about this? Well, vitamin D is one of the precursor vitamins to making sure that all of our hormones are healthy, and for all of us who are trying to perform at a high level, it's very taxing on our hormones, so this is an important thing to make sure is in place. Next is magnesium. Somewhere around 80% of the North American population is deficient in magnesium. Now, magnesium is important because it has a lot to do with actually the firing of muscles. And if we aren't able to fire our muscles as efficiently, probably not going to perform very well. There are all different kinds of magnesium that people can take. You can take magnesium to help get to sleep. You can take magnesium in a pill form. You can take magnesium from a topical spray. What I like to use is Ease Magnesium. Kind of hard to find, but it's one of the most bioavailable topical magnesiums that you can put on. It helps you get to sleep a little bit. Next is iron. There was a study done years and years ago where they basically put a few groups of mice into water and they let them swim until they drowned. There was one group, however, that was able to swim basically indefinitely, and they had to take the mice out and say, all right, you guys passed. And what they thought at the time was that it was liver that was the super food that was allowing them to do this. Actually, looking back on this decades later, what researchers found is that the other groups of mice that drowned were anemic. They were low in iron and that liver actually increase the iron. Now, iron actually helps out our red blood cells a lot, which carry oxygen to the muscles. And if you are deficient in iron, which a lot of female endurance athletes are, you're not going to be able to perform very well because it's a very aerobic, intensive, oxygen utilizing activity. So iron, often in the form of liver or spirulina, is very bioavailable. I don't recommend taking iron, however, in a pill form. Next is omega-3. One of the biggest things that we battle as triathletes is inflammation. It's very hard on our body. Now, if our omega-3 to omega-6 balance is off, and typically it's easier to go over on omega-6, we're going to end up becoming inflamed. We're going to be sore. We're not going to be able to function very well. We're going to retain a little bit of water. Omega-3 helps balance that out, reduce our inflammation so that we can recover faster and train more often. Again, I don't recommend taking this necessarily from a pill because omega-3s, fish oils, things like that have been shown to have really high levels of rancidity, so they go bad. They will wreak havoc on your stomach. So two of the best sources of this are krill oil and salmon roe. And finally, bone broth or collagen proteins. Now, this is used for improving the connective tissues in all of our joints, and we beat up our bodies a ton. It really helps improve our gut health, which is basically just beat up with us spending so much time as triathletes with blood in our extremities, not in our stomach, while we still put a bunch of gels and things down there and slosh all around. So we need to repair our gut a little bit, and we need to repair the pounding that happens on our joints. And studies have shown that bone broth and collagen proteins go directly to joints to help keep them healthy. Now let's get into the it depends category. Number one is creatine. Creatine is one of the few supplements that has been proven time and time again to enhance performance. There's no doubt about that. Why wouldn't triathletes always take it then? Well, because it actually shows that on an endurance standpoint, anything longer than about 2 or 3 minutes, the benefit tends to be a little bit more muted. What was talked about in one of our podcasts on the Triathlon Taren podcast, which is the most highly rated triathlon podcast in the world, Scott Forbes talked about how triathletes could cycle in and out of using creatine. Using creatine during the off season, the base building season, the strength and speed building season, when they really need to hit intense efforts, and then cycle off of it in the race season so that you lose all that extra weight and you actually get, it's like taking ankle and wrist weights off. You actually get the improved benefit from being able to go more intense while your training is intense, and you get the benefit from building that strength at a higher weight and racing at a lower weight. Next is amino acids. Now, amino acids put into your drink and your bottle while you are exercising, this depends on if you feel that it's a benefit. Might be due to the placebo effect, but a lot of people find that amino acids help keep them fresh. While studies have shown that amino acids actually delay the release of serotonin in the brain, so you actually feel less sleepy towards the end of a long workout. Try it for yourself though. It's not necessarily one of those things that is 100% proven to be great for you. Next is beetroot juice. Now, a lot of people use beetroot juice, and the nitrates in this open up the blood vessels, allowing people to pump blood and oxygen to their muscles more efficiently. The it depends part of this is that it's only around about 1/3 of the population that really get this benefit. So if you get this benefit, if you're one of those lucky 33% that actually gets a benefit and you feel like you're just jazzed up and can take on the world, pump yourself full of beetroot juice. Next, ketones and MCT oil or powder. I'll put these two together because they're kind of the common low carb, keto, adapted athlete sort of go-to. They tend to work fairly well, like they are proven to work well. Thing is, they work best if you are in that low carb, ketogenic training state. So there are times that you might want to use it, times that you really wouldn't consider using it if you're not one of those athletes. If you're a traditional high carb kind of athlete, you're not going to get a ton more benefit from this beyond what you're gonna get from your carbs. Finally, a probiotic or a prebiotic. In both of these cases, it really depends. I think there are a bunch of years that probiotics were prescribed to everyone, regardless of what was going on in your gut. What we're finding now is that it really depends on the state of your digestive tract. Some people benefit from probiotics. Some people, probiotics will actually make some of their problems worse. So dealing with a naturopath, a homeopath, actually getting a full digestive gut tract system test taken care of, that I'm stumbling a little bit because I've done it and it involves collecting your poo. Understanding of what is actually going on throughout your entire digestive tract is important before you just go pumping stuff in there. Finally, a few of the overrated supplements out there. I'm gonna shock you, a multivitamin is probably one of them. Just taking a multivitamin without worrying about how your body is actually deficient or okay in certain vitamins, minerals, nutrients, things like that, it actually can do you harm, because taking something that is from outside, not through real food, it can throw off the levels of what's going on and have downstream trickle effects that could actually do more harm than good. It's not just as simple as, all right, if you are topped up on something, you're just gonna pee it out. If you're deficient on something, you're gonna absorb it. There are effects where if you poke this thing, that thing comes out. So you gotta be very careful with vitamins and not just take them blindly. Also, there is the fact of just making your pee really expensive by pumping yourself with a bunch of vitamins that are hard to absorb. Next is L-CARNITINE, and this is something that a lot of people talk about how it improves fat oxidation. Does it improve fat oxidation? Yes. How long does it take to really improve fat oxidation and see a difference in your training? About 6 to 9 months of loading of this. You're gonna spend a ton of time doing it, and what's probably going to have more in effect? Your training and your diet. Finally, the last thing is melatonin. Now this is very, very common, doesn't really have a performance supplement sort of stigma to it or association with it, but a lot of people take melatonin because sleep is so important for us triathletes. We have to be very careful of it. The reason that it's overrated is, A, it isn't until you get into older populations that you really do see a true benefit to melatonin actually helping your sleep, and B, there are some very strong indications that melatonin, while it might help your sleep temporarily, it can hurt it long term if you're taking it consistently. So if you do take it, like I might take it, just even if it's for the placebo effect, maybe in the first day after travel, but that's it. So 6-7 times a year, not every day. So there you go, Trainiacs. I hope that this helps clear up some things, and you know what, as I think about it, everyone turns into a scientist when you start talking about nutrition and supplements. So, let's hear in the comments below, what are the supplements that you take and what are the benefits that you find? Everything is individual to everyone else, so I'm sure that there are going to be lots of supplements that people have different experiences and different knowledge of. So I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn. Tell me in the description below what you are taking, what you find it helps, and if you aren't already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. Later, Trainiacs.